Welcome to another episode of Marketing Monday. I am here with Kris Grazier with SageAge Strategies, and we are going to be talking about our experience at Smash last week that was amazing. But before we get started, this. Hey, Kris. So,
Hello.
let's just start by talking about overall impression. Actually, let's start about talking about who you are and who SageAge is.
Okay, hello. I'm Kris Grazier. I'm the Executive Creative Director at SageAge. And what SageAge does is we help senior living communities increase occupancy. And we do that through marketing that moves, which is using strategy and insights to create lead generation tactics to move our audiences emotionally and also to the next step.
So I actually want to dig a little bit deeper into this idea of moving people emotionally. Talk to me about what that means.
Yes, in fact, I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today and that a lot of the people at Smash talked about is we still need to be personal. We need to understand what people need and want so that we can deliver and have our brand connect with them emotionally. So personal messages will do that a lot.
Terrific. So talk to me about your overall impression of Smash.
Yeah.
I am dying to know. I'll give some of my reflections as well.
I thought it was great. It was very energetic. It was actually my first time, although SageAge is a founding partner. I've been to Leading Age so many times, and I really like that Smash is small and more intimate, and I felt like people were really open with sharing information and knowledge. So I had a great time.
Great. I was the same way. So I've been to every Smash since they started, and this was probably my favorite. I felt like I did more real business. I worked with a number of foresight partners like SageAge and some new potential partners that we talked to. Spent a little bit of time, quite a bit of time looking at AI relative to our AI lab that we're hosting in a couple of months. And I guess the other big impression is that people just seem so positive to me. People seem really, really, really enthusiastic about where their business is, where senior living is. I think it was probably the most positive, even since before COVID. So that was really, really exciting. Let's see, where do I? So if you look at the content, can you talk to me a little bit about sort of the content stuff that you particularly liked?
Sure. Well, there was four of us plus Melinda, our owner. And so we covered a lot of the sessions. I covered mostly branding and creative. And of course, AI was mixed into all of that as well. And then Sean, our EVP of digital, also covered a lot of the AI sessions. So for me, I'll kind of start with my standout sessions and kind of what I took away. And I would say one thing that I really took away is, and I kind of alluded to it when we first started talking, but personal. So it felt like everybody, even with technology, was talking about how do we make technology feel more personal so we can really connect with people. So one session that I went to, actually my favorite session, was called 40 Ideas in 40 Minutes. And it was a panel of 4 women, and they each had a different perspective on sales and marketing. And they did like a rapid fire session, which was very lively and talked about a lot of great ideas. And all of them were around how do we be more personal with people to connect.
Cool. Can you give me a couple examples of what you liked?
Yes, one of the ideas, and I know that people are really interested in beginning to continuing to grow professional referrals and not relying so much on paid referrals. And one of the ideas that I really loved was they did a professional referral event in a nail salon, and they called it, around petties and bubbly. And so they had a captive audience, and, they were able to really treat their professional referrals in a way that is maybe different than having them for lunch.
So this is really interesting to me because it seems like as I talk to sales and marketing people, they've almost given up on professional referrals. In particular, the discharge planners, they'll never let me in to see them. They don't care. They're just trying to push people through. Do you have thoughts on how you break it? And did they talk about how to talk a little deeper about how did they get them out to do this?
Yeah, there was several that I wrote down, and I think it's just connecting in a way that feels different. One of the very cool ideas was there's a app that's called Alice, ALIS, and it can act, and this is a little creepy, but it can pull your Facebook and LinkedIn profiles, and it can recommend a more personal gift that really feels authentic and
Oh,
connects.
really?
Yeah, so that was a pretty cool one that I wrote down. And then also another one was a community, and this was actually in another session I really liked. The Ridge Senior Living talked a lot about reducing paid referrals, and they talked a lot about, for example, like sending a care package to the local emergency. Community, and building that relationship around their dementia care, because of course we know that those people in the front lines are dealing with our audience quite a bit, and appealing to them in a way that felt authentic and personal as well.
So one of the sessions that I really wish I had gone to, and they're actually on my list to follow up to do a story on, is Ridge. I understand that they have completely cut the cord on paid referrals, and that's pretty remarkable.
Yes, I know that was really the talk, a lot of the talk of Smash, because when I was talking to some colleagues and clients, they were also talking about that. And I asked them if they had gone to that session, and they were very honest about how the salespeople felt and expressed concern when they shut that off. But they said, through good communication and showing them other ways that they could increase referrals, they got through it, and they're doing great. One of the things they talked about is optimizing their online presence. So, really having a strategy around your reviews and for Google Business, and making sure you maintain a 4-star rating, because we know ratings are so important, and to be very purposeful and thoughtful about that too.
Yeah, no question about that. So one of the things I think that we really struggle with is how do we take our message and make it really stick, make it resonate with people so that they remember it in a positive way. Do you have thoughts on that? And yeah, I know there were some sessions talking about that.
Yes, there was actually 2 competing sessions. So I covered one and Sean covered one.
Okay.
Both were around messaging. And one of the that I attended that I thought was really interesting was around consumer message testing. And I used to work in healthcare, and there was so much of that. I mean, pretty much nothing gets out without very sophisticated testing. But the group that was presenting was showing how you can take messaging and then really optimize it by understanding, actually doing the research and seeing how you can optimize those messages. And I thought that that could be interesting if you had maybe like a system where you have a set of messages that could be more long term. It might be worth doing more research than what we typically do to really test those messages and make sure they resonate with our audiences. And then the one that Sean attended was around AI. And we learned a lot about how you can use AI in practical ways. But what he talked about was, you can use ChatGPT to write for different audiences. And so you can upload your strategy, your brand, your content strategy, and then you can make sure your messages that you're writing are resonating in that way as well.
Yeah, so it's one of the things I haven't actually tried with ChatGPT, although I've got the base for it, is I've tried asking ChatGPT to write articles for me, and they're just not very good. At least they don't sound anything like me. And
Right.
so one of the things that somebody suggested to me was that I take like 20 articles that I've already written, upload that to ChatGPT, and then tell it to use that style. So I haven't tried it. I actually have a PDF that I went through and created last week that have got 20 of my articles, sort of my 20 most recent articles. And next time I'm going to try it and see. I still don't think, I think that it'll still take quite a bit of effort. So I actually, I think this is a really interesting question. And I think that one of the questions that has to be running through people's minds is, can I just use AI and then I don't need you anymore?
Right. That is probably something everybody has. And again, it's something that everybody is just learning to use. So there's a lot of unknown. But what I really loved about Smash as well, with the way that AI was presented, it was very practical. So one of the big takeaways for me was you need a brand strategy. You need to understand your audience and you need to understand your competitors. I mean, that's really what we're doing when we're showing people how to begin to establish a brand among the competition. And then you use AI to validate and support and optimize. So you've got your strategy, and then you need to build on that through using AI in a practical way.
Yeah, I think that I've seen several people talk about AI as being like I don't know, a high school senior or a college freshman or an intern, right? And so it becomes a great place to bounce ideas on. It becomes a great place to do research. But I'm absolutely 100% confident that I wouldn't want to turn my whole marketing plan over to AI. In fact, as you know, we're doing this AI lab in January, and so I went to ChatGPT and I asked it to create some emails for me, and they were pretty good, but they weren't. They all sounded sort of the same, and they just weren't very effective. And so I find myself I've rewritten a few of them, but I actually find myself just rewriting from scratch because it just doesn't have that capability to give you the kind of depth and richness that you really need. But I think that it is a wonderful, wonderful tool, and it's going to get better. So, what about other technologies? Did you see things there that got you excited that you liked?
Well, I would say when I'm thinking about technology also, and the ones that I looked at, it was really new tools to try with. I'll say again, because AI, we were really focused on that. We were wanting to make sure, how do we use it for practical ways for our consumers. I did learn about a platform called Auto Content, which you can upload again your website and look at, how do you want this to sound? How do you want it to connect with your audience? And it will, again, help you find ways to optimize that content. But as far as other technology, I did not. Sean was really focused on that side of it, and I was really focused more on the creative messaging.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about technology broadly. I think that first, of course, pretty much everybody is using a CRM right now. And I can remember there was a time where people were still doing pen and paper and pencil. And yet, I would also tell you that as I sat in sessions and talked about how people were using things, they're still doing a lot of stuff where they're downloading things, reloading them up to Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets and sorting them and doing an analysis. And in fact, they're finding that they don't necessarily, in some environments, they're not able to transfer data across platforms very well. And so while I think that the technology is so much better, a year from now, it'll be even better. 2 years from now, it'll be better. And ultimately, we have to look at this technology as tools that allow people to do the people stuff better and not replace people. And so that's the thing I keep seeing. The other thing I see is just things like, doing a better job of doing your SEO and doing keyword search and those kinds of things is becoming more sophisticated. I think there's still a lot of manual work that needs to be done there, but I think it's rapidly getting better.
Yes, and I think another thing is just realizing that what we do is an art and a science. So, like we talked about, it's not going to replace us, because even with SEO, it needs to have that strategy and that that thought behind it as far as how we're going to be more competitive. one of the things we asked, we did a round table, which you attended, and that was a lot of
That was
fun.
going to be my next thing to bring up. So good.
Okay. So we had a great mix of people, which I loved because there was an IT expert, there was 2 digital people, and there was sales, and then there was you and me. And we had such a great mix of people where we had different perspectives. And we did talk about that too. When we look at the amount of data that's available, how do you use it in a way that's competitive? Because if everybody has the same tools and the same information to get the data, then how do we use that in a better way? So that was one of the things we brainstormed around as well.
So let's talk. One of the things that we spend a little bit of time talking about, and this is an area that continues to really fascinate me, is there's this general belief, and sometimes I believe it and sometimes I don't, that the upcoming boomer consumer, that's me by the way, is very different than prior generations. And sometimes I think that that's probably true, and sometimes I'm not. So, kind of, what's your impression, and what kind of came out of the roundtable?
Yes, I am very excited about the boomers and the different expanse of boomers. When you think about the 20-year expanse of the boomers and how different even the attitudes of the older boomers and younger boomers are. And so we did talk about that a little bit, as far as the main thing really that we talked around is we need to deliver to them information in the way that feels easy and relevant to them. At least that's one of the things that I really enjoyed the topic around, when we thought about, like, how are they using technology? How do we learn how they're using technology, and what are they really looking for? And I think that makes senior living right now very exciting. And one of the reasons I went from healthcare back to senior living, because I feel like so much is changing. It's a whole new world from my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really interesting. I mean, I was thinking as you were talking, and I was thinking about this when we were at the roundtable, that I'm almost exactly in the middle of the cohort, and I hadn't really thought about it until you brought it up. But the oldest and the youngest are really very, very different. Their worlds are very different, and so I don't know whether that means that it being in the middle, I've got the best of both worlds. I'm just totally confused. I'm not quite sure about that yet.
Yes. Well, I'm Gen X, and I always like to think of, okay, so I understand the younger boomers, right? Because they're right above me. And I also understand the millennials, so, and I do think that people tend to also, they do identify with their generation, but sometimes they'd rather, maybe like for us, the Gen X, we maybe want to be a little millennial as well, because we want to be, being on the cutting edge of things and changing things as well. But it's funny too, because now with the millennials, we have Gen Z coming. So Gen Z is now the ones that we're all like, all the brands are trying to appeal to them. So
yes. You millennials are like middle aged now, and you're just not that interesting anymore, right? So one of the things that I do know about boomers, and I think this is probably maybe the biggest sea change, is that prior generations sort of were all in this together, and they didn't have necessarily, they had their needs. They had their needs wanted to have their needs met, but had their needs met as a group. And somehow, it sounds a little condemning of my generation, but somehow we become a little more selfish, and we want you as a marketer, you as a company, to notice me as me and not just as part of a group. So how do you create these customized messages to make sure that when you're talking to me, I feel like I'm special?
Yeah, I think it is knowing your consumer, making sure you understand what they want, and we can find that out in simple ways. Ask them, for one. We do a lot of surveys and focus groups. We do a lot of market research where we really understand what people are looking for. That also went with some of the other sessions that I saw. I think the Ridge actually in the session also showed they did a lot of testing around what is important to families when they come and look at a community, and then how is our brand aligning with that? So, behind the scenes, it's pretty sophisticated, or it can be, it's definitely purposeful. And then once we have that information, we craft the messages in a way that uses that information to
And
feel
this
more.
is a place where AI can really be valuable, right?
Yes, as long as it's used, like, I hear what you're saying about emails, when you're writing them, and we do blogs as well. We do a lot of blogs, and we will use AI in certain aspects, but then of course the writer's going to make it more personal. And, also with prompts, you can definitely, like you said, put a style in there or certain things that are important and continue to refine that output.
Yeah. So I know that you work with a number of organizations that have multiple sites, and they can be very dispersed, geographically dispersed. So it means different markets and different views. And so you've got this conflict that lives there. On one hand, you've got this common brand that you want to have. And on the other hand, you want to be able to meet the unique needs. And I know we had some conversation on that. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you do both at the same time, or is it possible to do both at the same time?
Sure. One example that I will talk about is a provider we work with in Chicago, and they are known, they have a great reputation. But they recently looked to say, how do we be more relevant for the future? And they want to expand even outside of their walls, out of their communities they have in Chicago. And their communities are very individualized. So we did focus groups, and we talked to the stakeholders, and we learned that there's a lot of value with the individual communities, and there's a lot of value with that corporate brand. So we put together a brand architecture where we agreed this is how we're going to talk at the brand level, but there's no reason to evolve these individual communities. They have these personalities. Let's lean into that personality. And so that's what we did for them. And then at the round table, I was really excited to have a large provider at our table who we got to learn from as well. And we had some good conversation around there. You had an idea for them as well, that about how to make it personal, even though their brand, is across the country.
What did I say? I forgot.
Well, I loved it because you said, have you thought about being the Ritz-Carlton of senior
Oh,
living?
yes.
And they were a little hesitant whether they could deliver on that. But I will say I have studied the Ritz-Carlton about, their mantra, or I don't know if it's still their mantra, but it was ladies and gentlemen treating ladies and gentlemen. So every person that works at Ritz-Carlton, every touch point, that's how they deliver it. They think of their guests as ladies and gentlemen. So I think that would be a great way for somebody to try to deliver that brand experience in senior living.
Yeah, and so you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that the thing the Ritz-Carlton does, and I've stayed in enough Ritz-Carltons to be frankly, I don't know that they always actually live up to the brand promise. I've had some fairly ordinary experiences, but I find that the idea they've created this aura that it's the best, and I'm not sure that any senior living organization has done that. I do think there are some senior living communities and individual markets that have done that. I think about the Kendall building up in Healdsburg, the Enzo Village that they've done with the Zen Center in San Francisco, and they've created this very unique. I mean, who wouldn't want to stay there? And I don't know what their numbers are like, but I know that before they opened, they had a wait list of like 2,000 people or something. And I kind of find myself dreaming that maybe a big system could be that across the country or across a region.
Yes, I agree. And I love to think about, like, I think every time we talk about delivering that surprise and delight, almost that unexpected for people. And I really love it when the clients that I'm working with, they want to be unexpected. We have another system we're working with, and they, when we presented an idea around age being just an attitude, it's like your choices that you make, and this campaign will come out pretty soon for them, is they were very excited and they talked about, we want bold language, we want to stand out. And so for me, that made my day because, we love to craft language that really does cut through, because there's so much out there that feels the same. And now with AI, like we talked about, of course, you're pulling all of that together. So it's so important to make that personal and distinctive.
So the other thing I want to spend a little bit of time is talking about is storytelling. As you know, as really our audience knows, if you watched and read what we talk about, we are big fans of storytelling. And we think that storytelling is not done as often as it should be. We need to be telling life-changing stories. So what are you doing? How do you get the story thing right?
Well, I think sometimes people believe that you have to have a very polished testimonial video. And I think that one of the things we're really trying to work with clients on is, how do you capture that content? I mean, your best storytellers, of course, are your residents, but you don't have to have like a 7-minute video that goes on your website. I mean, maybe that's part of it, but you can do little snackable, bite-sized content. You can do it in a way that feels fresh. We know Reels and is one of the most, watched form of content. You can do Reels. You don't have to advertise on TikTok to do something that feels like that kind of content that just draws people in. So we're looking at new ways to take sound bites and other things that people are expressing about why they love living in a community, and we're trying to deliver them in unique ways.
Yeah, I think, the cameras on these things have gotten so good. And for 30 or 40 bucks, you can get a little microphone. Mine's in my backpack. I was pull it out as an illustration, plug it in there, clip it on, and you get really good sound quality. And honestly, the quality, they're actually more genuine if they're not perfect than if they are perfect. They look more real. And so it's a huge challenge. And I'm gonna and the other thing I'd advocate for is just get your people, maybe even get your residents to do some of the filming. I did talk to one person. I don't think it was at the round table. I hope not, or I'm going to get myself in trouble. Sort of said, well, you can never trust residents to do videos. I actually don't think that's true. I think you've got some people who'd be doing an amazing job at that. So,
Oh, yeah, I
um,
agree. And I think we need to let go of a little bit of control. As long as we know generally what the brand stands for and what we're trying to do, and we coach people, we definitely should have more people telling the story and feel like we can let go a little bit of that control, because it does come across as more authentic and believable and interesting to people.
yeah.
What do my peers think about this place?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about Chewy and Chick-fil-A, and you and I have talked a little bit about we've talked a little bit about In-N-Out Burger. And so what do all those things have to do with senior living?
Okay, so one of the questions, well, actually, we love to ask questions as part of, how we learn. And one of the questions that I asked at the roundtable is, okay, so what brands are you loving right now? What brands are surprising you? And one of the people at our roundtable talked about how Chewy, which is a pet delivery service, how when your pet passes away, they do some very personal things. They will send flowers. They will give you an option of donating your extra food to somewhere, or they will also do pet portraits. I was doing a little more research, and so they're very personal. And then Chick-fil-A, we talked about the reason why do we feel like Chick-fil-A has higher customer service, and they definitely do. And one of the things that we, of course, notice when we go through the drive-through is my pleasure. So that's kind of like the Ritz-Carlton thing, but it's for fast food. It is treating you like, with respect and with caring about your satisfaction. So again, coming back to very personal service.
Yeah. I remember one of the people at our roundtable and talking about Chick-fil-A said, it's a really very ordinary food, but they create this extraordinary experience. And
Yes.
being a vegetarian, I have no way of commenting on the food itself. I think my sense is the food's pretty it's not gourmet, but it's good. It's better than average fast food, right? But
Yes.
it's the customer experience, and the same thing is true at In-N-Out Burger, right? I mean, you go to a Chick-fil-A or an In-N-Out Burger and you compare that to a Burger King or a McDonald's or a Taco Bell, and they're not even close.
Yep.
And so how do we do that in senior living?
I believe that, a lot of people are talking about brand experience, and it's not just your communications, it's every detail and making sure that, we and everybody that understands, or everybody who works for that brand and represents that brand, knows what our voice is and what our unique differentiators are, and where are some creative ways that we can bring that through as people come and experience the brand.
So I actually think, that SageAge does an amazing job of this. As I taught, I know a lot of people who work at SageAge. We've been working together for a long time. Faith Ott, who founded SageAge, is a close personal friend. And one of the things I find is that as I talk to you and I talk to other people who work at SageAge, you're all really like being a part of this family. And I think that carries through in how you interact with the people at the round table, the other people you interact with, your customers and your prospects. And what it does is it makes them go, oh man, I'd like to be a part of that SageAge thing too. And so how do we translate that into a senior living community where people walk in and they say, oh man, I wish I lived here. I wish my mom lived here. I wish my dad lived here.
I'll go back to what I talked about with being personal and really, not really putting, like an image up. Like, I think people are more transparent now, and I think that's really important in business. That's another trend we're seeing, that boomers and others, of course, are looking for transparency. And so I think whether it's working for a company or at a senior living community, to the extent you can, to be transparent and be real and, just be who you are.
Yeah. I stayed when I was at Smash, as you know, I stayed at a Human Good CCRC. I've got some video and some stories, and I interviewed for a few minutes the head of their resident council, and his big thing, the reason he loves that community, loves being a part of it, is because they're so transparent, and that he feels like he is a resident, has a voice in how he lives his life there. And so I think that's so powerful. So we're about out of time, but where do we find you next?
Okay, so next up, very excited, in 2 weeks, SageAge will be at Leading Age in Nashville. And one of the things—
1 week.
1 week, sorry. 1 week, yes.
Starts a week from Sunday, less than a week.
Thank you. You're right. And one of the questions we like to ask, because we like to ask questions to get to know you better, is what keeps you up at night? And so, just a way for you and we to talk about what are some of your biggest marketing challenges. We'd love to dig in with you and talk about that and learn from you as well.
You guys should have t-shirts that say, what keeps you up at night?
Well, that's what we've been talking about. Right now, we have I'm not wearing it today, but we have our big logo, SageAge, which I love, our black t-shirt that we wear. And we wore dresses this year, which I thought was really fun to all have that logo and represent. But yes, what keeps you up at night? Maybe we'll do that. Probably not in a week. Kendra would kill me, but maybe for next
a little tough. Yeah. Cool. Well, listen, Kris, this has been amazing. It was great to hang out with you. The roundtable was fun. We all learned really good things. We grew together as people who really care about the industry and the people in the industry. And I think that we should, I can hardly wait to see you guys all this coming week at Leading Age. And I look forward to seeing all of you, there we go, at Leading Age in Nashville as well. Thank you very much. And until next time.
Thanks, Steve. Bye-bye.